When I was recuperating abroad, I heard Peter found a double who looked just like me. Peter comforted me over the phone, "Linda, don't listen to those rumors. Lucy is just a student I'm sponsoring." But later, Peter abandoned me at our wedding for Lucy. While everyone was laughing at my misery, my childhood friend, Luke, walked over and said, "Linda, how about swapping grooms?" When I saw the gossip about Peter, I had just finished my rehab session. The headline boldly read, "Cinderella's story becomes reality, M Group president's new love is an orphan." I wiped my sweat and clicked on the large image. Peter was there, looking stern, protectively holding a woman. Despite the blurry pixels, it was clear she resembled me a bit. I carelessly forwarded the gossip to my best friend's group chat. Everyone comforted me, saying she's just a stand-in, begging for attention while I'm away. Once I'm back, all those nobodies will be gone. I looked down at my hands and remained silent. 2 years ago, in an accident, I injured my hands trying to save Peter from a falling chandelier. A pianist without hands is nothing more than a waste. My days were filled with tears until my family arranged for me to rehab at a top overseas hospital, and also receive psychological counseling. When I left, Peter hugged me tightly with red eyes and said, "Linda, give me a year. I'll come to be with you in a year." At that time, the battle for Howard family's inheritance was at its peak. Peter, a recently recognized illegitimate child, had a tough struggle ahead. I comforted him lightly, "Peter, let's both work hard. See you at the top." I never expected it to be 2 years apart. A sudden phone ringtone jolted me back to reality. I answered the call, and Peter's urgent voice came through, "Linda, don't believe those gossip articles. That woman's name is Lucy. She's a student I'm sponsoring. She was playing the piano in a bar and got bullied. She looked like you when she played, so I stepped in to help. She's an orphan, but she's incredibly gifted at piano. Even Lola, my piano teacher, really likes her. She shares your dream of becoming a world-famous female pianist." Lola was my piano teacher too, charging $2,000 per hour. Peter's so-called sponsorship was money spent on her piano lessons. In a long 30-minute call, Peter didn't ask once about my injury. Instead, he talked non-stop about Lucy. After hanging up, I called my attending physician. "Dar. Sean, I want to increase my rehab intensity. I want to complete it within a month and return home." Peter didn't come to pick me up when I returned. I asked the family's driver to take me straight to M Group's headquarters. I wanted to see just how busy he really was. Since my family had always been close to the Howard family, I had unrestricted access to M Group and went straight to Peter's office. When I arrived, Lucy and Peter were eating a poorly presented cake together. "Come on, I spent all day baking this. At least have a bite." Lucy held a spoon to Peter's mouth. Peter reluctantly took a bite, his eyes filled with affection. All right, it's delicious. If you delay any longer, you'll miss your piano lesson tonight." But I clearly remembered Peter never ate sweets. My heart sank, but I didn't show it on my face. I stood at the door, chuckling, "I've been gone 2 years, and you're so poor you have to share cake with someone else? Where's the see you at the top?" Peter looked up startled, joy and surprise filling his face. He immediately stood up and walked toward me. "Linda, you're back?" I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't you get my text this morning?" He paused, then recalled, "I left my personal phone at the restaurant this morning. I was just about to have my secretary retrieve it." Lucy interjected, "I told you not to rush to pick me up. I'm not a child. If it rains too heavily, I can take a cab. See, you even forgot your phone." She then turned to me naturally, "Linda, I'm sorry. That's my fault for not reminding him. Don't blame him. You don't know, when he's anxious, he gets forgetful." Peter sighed and said, "Who's the one always forgetting their bag or sheet music? You have the nerve to call me forgetful." Their words were not overtly intimate yet sounded so close, making me feel like the outsider. My original rehab plan abroad was supposed to take 3 years. To return early and be with Peter, I pushed my doctor to compress it into 2 years. Whenever I felt like I couldn't continue, the thought of Peter waiting for me gave me strength. Who knew that while I was struggling and holding on with clenched teeth, he was having a cozy time with another woman? After returning home, I began investigating Lucy while avoiding visitors. Peter called many times, but I never answered. Desperate, he came to my house. My mom invited him in and came to the second floor to talk to me. Peter is now the heir to M Group. You two are engaged. Now that he's willing to reconcile, you should accept it. In families like ours, as long as interests align, the marriage is stable. Those outsiders don't matter. I understood the reasoning but still felt heartbroken. I always thought we were different. When I met Peter, he hadn't been recognized by the Howard family yet. He was just a scholarship student at our elite school brought in for the sake of good grades. I often asked him for help with questions, and over time, feelings developed. Back then, I was the rich young lady, and he was just a poor student. His mother fell ill several times, and I provided the financial help they needed. He swore to me at his mother's sickbed, "Linda, if I ever have second thoughts, may I die a miserable death." Linda, did you hear what Mom said? Mom pushed me, as I was staring blankly. I heard her, Mom. I understand everything, but today, at least today, I don't want to see him. I pushed Mom out of the room, went back, opened the piano lid, and started practicing. Soon, I heard someone knocking on the window. I pulled the curtains open and saw Peter with an innocent grin, showing his bright white teeth. Linda, you finally decided to talk to me. Many years ago, in a similar sunset, Peter climbed to my second-floor window and knocked. That knock shattered 16 years of following the rules for me. I defied my parents for the first time and sneaked out with him to see a movie. At that moment, the person outside the window overlapped with that boy from 10 years ago. I softened and opened the window. You're too old to be climbing windows. Come in. Peter climbed in and eagerly took out a bag of warm cookies from his fancy suit, handing them to me. He said pitifully, I know you love these. I queued up to buy them for you and rushed to bring them over. Glad they didn't get cold. I laughed and got mad at the same time. I took the cookies and placed them on the coffee table, then got him some water. John followed me with a smile, not mad at me anymore, okay? He continued gently, I heard you playing the piano earlier. How's your hand? Do you need to rest more? Annoyed by his chatter, I glanced at him. Sit by the sofa and don't bother me while I practice. Seeing us making up, Mom smiled and invited Peter to stay for dinner. She even had the butler call our usual Chinese restaurant for delivery. Suddenly, thunder roared outside. Peter went silent, staring at the gloomy sky with a frown. I played Peter's favorite piece, the one I promised to play at our wedding. It's a challenging showpiece. I wanted to tell him my hand's fine. But he was distracted and didn't even notice when I stopped playing. Until a phone rang. From the phone, a clear woman's voice said, Peter, thank you for your care recently. I'm leaving now. Peter gripped the phone tightly. You're afraid of thunder. There's lightning and thunder out there. Why are you doing this? Another flash of lightning struck. My brain buzzed with the noise, so Peter's distraction was because he remembered another woman afraid of thunder. And this woman lived in his house. What am I, then? What am I? Peter had already stood up, hurriedly saying, Linda, I'm sorry. I'll explain later. He then rushed into the rain without even saying goodbye to my mother. I suddenly recalled an old story I once heard. A girl who had been dating her boyfriend for years found out he had been affectionate with a junior behind her back. On her birthday, she earnestly wished for their safety and happiness together. The boyfriend was restless because of a message from another girl who was afraid of the dark. You never realize the song's meaning when you first hear it, but you do when it becomes your story. I wanted to ask Peter, during those 5 minutes I was playing the piano with my eyes shut, did you worry about her being scared of the thunder, or were you thinking about my shattered dream? But he didn't even give me the chance to ask before he left. I emotionlessly picked up the now cold cookies from the coffee table and tossed them into the trash. The next day, Peter made the gossip headlines again. Some clever journalist not only captured photos but also recorded the audio. In the noise-reduced video, their conversation was clear. In the pouring rain, Peter hugged Lucy from behind as she struggled and cried, "Since you have Linda, why involve me? I'm poor. I have no background or family, but I'm a living person. I get hurt too." Seeing her, I realized I had always been her stand-in. Now that the original was back, I naturally had to leave. Or should I wait for you to kick me out? As she finished speaking, she seemed to struggle for breath and fainted in Peter's arms. The story of a rich young master and a Cinderella girl always catches attention, especially with a melodramatic love triangle soon. People dug out Linda from her words. My Twitter comments exploded with onlookers. Opinions were divided. One side believed Peter truly loved Lucy without realizing it, a clear love and substitute story. People earnestly urged Peter to wake up, Lucy was his true love, and I was just an obstacle. They even imagined me as the evil supporting character. The other side thought Lucy was manipulative, playing the victim to force Peter to choose. They heard Peter's first love got injured saving him, then went abroad for treatment. They said Lucy knew about his engagement but chose to wedge herself in. I practiced piano while my friend Mary ranted. I always told you Peter wasn't the right guy. Doing whatever outside is fine, but making it public humiliates both the Howard family and you. And that Lucy is strange. I checked on her. She's an orphan, so how did she afford piano lessons? She looks, behaves, and likes the same things as you. She appeared just when Peter missed you the most and you weren't there. Honestly, I think she could be a spy sent by Peter's rivals. Linda, listen to me, there are plenty of good men out there. Even for a marriage of convenience, you shouldn't choose someone unclear about his priorities. Or else everyone will think they can mess with you even after you're married. How about I introduce my cousin to you? I closed the piano lid and stuffed a cookie in Mary's mouth. Okay, stop it. The whole arranged marriage thing isn't my call. Go enjoy your surfing. Mary angrily chewed the cookie. Then she noticed the manuscript of the C minor Fifth Symphony on the nightstand. You still have this by your bed? Are you still hung up on Peter? I stayed silent. That manuscript belonged to my favorite pianist. Peter went to great lengths to get it, even flying to Germany to persuade the previous owner to part with it. It was his engagement gift to me. I had just casually mentioned wanting that manuscript. But he took it to heart and made it happen. Back then, he said, "Linda, your wish is the most important thing to me." I stared at the manuscript, feeling a lump in my throat, unable to understand how we ended up here. That night, Uncle Jeffrey came over with Peter. They were both very humble, bringing expensive jewelry and gifting my dad a project development right. After my parents let off some steam, they calmed down, and both families started discussing the wedding date. Peter, knowing he was in the wrong, looked at me pitifully the entire time. I listened quietly and obediently, not saying a word. In families like ours, arranged marriages are common. If there's affection, then great. If not, usually it means each doing their own thing after the wedding, not interfering with each other. Before leaving, Uncle Jeffrey patted my shoulder and promised, "Linda, I've watched you grow up. The wife for our Howard family can only be you." Peter nodded vigorously beside him. I lowered my eyes without responding. Uncle Jeffrey then pulled Peter to apologize to me, guaranteeing he'd never trouble me again. Only then did I smile and nod. I just wanted to make sure Peter knew that if there wasn't genuine affection, then at least give me the minimum respect. With both parents working hard to push it forward, Peter was very attentive. The wedding plans went smoothly, and when I got into the wedding car, it felt a bit unreal. We successfully held the ceremony on the lawn by the lake. Afterwards, everyone moved to the banquet hall for dinner preparations. Peter, a few staff members, and I were the last to leave. That's when Lucy showed up. She was in a white dress, with carefully done makeup, looking just like a bride. Pulling a suitcase, she approached Peter, choking up. "Peter, congratulations, true lovers have finally tied the knot. I came today to say goodbye. I'm heading to the airport soon." Peter frowned. Didn't we agree you'd stay to prepare for the piano competition? Why this sudden departure? Lucy, with reddened eyes, looked at Peter. Stay for what? To love in vain and suffer alone? When she's unhappy, you treat me coldly, torturing me, making me miserable too. Why do you treat me like this? Just because she's a rich heiress and I'm a powerless orphan, does that mean you can bully me however you want? Before she finished, I raised my hand and slapped her hard. Caught off guard, Lucy's eyes filled with tears. I coldly said, Miss Lucy, we've only met twice, and this is the first time I've spoken to you. You claim I've bullied you, trying to start rumors with vague words? I thought about it, and clearing up rumors would be too troublesome. I might as well confirm it with a slap. Before I ignored your provocations because it was like getting bitten by a dog. I had no reason to bite back, but if this dog keeps acting up, I don't mind using a stick to deal with it. Our argument finally drew everyone's attention. More and more people gathered around. Seeing this, Lucy suddenly rushed over and pushed me into the water, then jumped in herself. The heavy dress pulled me down. I struggled, choking on water multiple times. In the chaos, Peter grabbed me, handing me over to the hotel lifeguard, then turned to swim towards Lucy. After being pulled ashore, I shook with cold as staff quickly covered me with a blanket. But Peter intercepted the blanket, wrapping it around Lucy instead. While giving her CPR, he cried, Lucy, wake up. Please wake up. Lucy coughed out water, eyes trembling as she opened them, clinging to Peter's clothes. Why did you save me? Why didn't you let me die? She could swim, and there were plenty of people to save her. You knew I couldn't swim, yet you saved her first. In your heart, I'll never compare to her. Peter, I'm done. Let me go. Peter hugged her tightly, repeatedly promising, Lucy, I swear I'll never leave you again, just don't go, don't leave me. Then take me away. Peter, I'm so cold, take me to the hospital, okay? Lucy weakly pleaded. Okay, please stop crying. Your tears break my heart. I'll take you right now. We'll go to the hospital. Peter cradled Lucy and slowly walked towards the hotel exit. Guests were shocked, automatically making way for him. Lucy, in his arms, looked back at me with a face full of triumph and provocation. Peter. I couldn't help but call out. Peter paused but didn't turn around. I collapsed on the ground, teeth chattering, dazed, unable to think of a crisis management plan. My parents hurried over. Dad's face was dark, and Mom wrapped me in a blanket with concern. People around whispered, either pitying or mocking me. A clueless kid even took out a phone to record. The overwhelming humiliation suffocated me. A familiar figure approached. Luke, in a perfectly tailored suit, helped me up, asking gently and firmly. Linda, do you mind switching to a new groom? I looked at Luke, momentarily confused. The William family used to be one of the top families in N City. But in recent years, they shifted business to J City, so people rarely mentioned them anymore. Luke is the youngest son of the William family. The family business is managed by his older brother, while he gets to live a carefree life. When he was young, he was a bit of a rascal, but he grew into a world-renowned violinist. I ran into him several times while I was doing rehab abroad. I even teased him, Master, you appear around here so often, are you hiding a lover nearby? Luke and I are childhood friends, and we've kept in touch all these years. I didn't expect him to propose under these circumstances. I gritted my teeth and asked him quietly, are you trying to make this fiasco even bigger? Luke dropped his usual frivolous demeanor and said seriously, Linda, I'm not joking. I studied him for a moment, and found he was indeed very serious. I even saw unease and pleading in his eyes. I don't know if it was because of my confusion from nearly drowning or anger towards Peter. On an impulse, I nodded and agreed. Luke couldn't help but lift me up and spin me around, shouting to the guests, she said yes. After that, he started calling his parents, asking them to get over here quickly by helicopter. Then he went over to my parents and said something to them. My mom, who had been frowning, began to relax and even showed a hint of a smile. After he finished reporting to the elders, he proudly opened up his friend group and announced, "Your lordship is getting married today. Bring your red envelopes and come congratulate me." I was stunned by his actions, unable to predict what he would do next. Luke was in full control, while I felt like a puppet, following his lead through this absurd wedding that night. As soon as I got home, I came down with a high fever. I had a strange dream. In the dream, the world I lived in was actually a book. I dreamt that I went through with the wedding to Peter, but he kept a gloomy face the entire time. That night, he suddenly lost his temper at me, yelling, "Lucy is just an orphan with no threat to you. Why did you force her away?" I hadn't done anything, but Lucy's few inflammatory Instagram posts before leaving successfully made him blame everything on me. Peter looked at me with a cold smile and said, "Since you drove her away, you'll spend your life as her replacement." Then he violently pinned me down, humiliating and venting his anger on me. He locked me in the house, making me wear Lucy's clothes, eat Lucy's favorite foods, and then held me while calling me by her name. 3 years later, on my birthday, Lucy arrived uninvited with a man and a young boy. She had become a famous pianist, and several men at the party were entangled with her. Peter hadn't taken his eyes off her since she arrived. They quickly reconciled, and to make up for Lucy and her child, Peter started taking revenge on my family. In the end, my family went bankrupt. My parents were left in debt and destitute. I fell into severe depression, barely hanging on in the hospital. Lucy, holding her child, stood smugly by my hospital bed, laughing, "Linda, I am the protagonist." I woke up with a start. My back was soaked with cold sweat. The dream was too real, so real it terrified me. A warm hand touched my forehead, checking my temperature. Fortunately, the fever had broken. Seeing me in a daze, Luke waved his hand in front of me. "Linda, you back with us?" I looked up at him blankly. "Did I marry you?" Luke raised an eyebrow. "Of course. Surprised you got to marry such a prime human specimen like me?" "You don't have to be too shocked." I suddenly gripped his hand, calling his name tremulously. "Luke, Luke, say it again. I married you, right?" Luke put aside his teasing and seriously grasped my hands, answering patiently, "Linda, you married me. I'll always be with you." I relaxed and fell into a deep sleep again. Before I drifted off, I heard Luke softly say, "Don't worry, I'm here." My cold kept recurring, so Luke decided to take me to Hawaii to recover. We didn't return to New York City until half a month later. Just arriving at my parents' place, even before we could move the luggage inside, Peter rushed up and grabbed me. Luke didn't hesitate, pushing him aside and landing a punch, producing a dull sound. Peter covered his mouth, looking at me with a hint of aggression. "Linda, come here." Luke, sensing Luke's unease, I took the initiative to link arms with him and replied calmly, "Peter, you were the one who broke off the engagement first." Peter said coldly, "We already had the ceremony. You're my wife. Shouldn't I have saved someone's life?" I nodded. "You did the right thing. You chose Lucy, I chose Luke. It's fair." Luke, pleased, wrapped his arm around my waist and ignored Peter. He just asked me, "Did you register the marriage with him?" I shook my head. "No, we were planning to do it next month for our anniversary." Luke raised an eyebrow. "Perfect, let's register ours today." I thought for a moment. "All right." As Luke led me towards the villa, Peter said behind me, "Linda, he doesn't really want to marry you. He's been against me since school. He just wants to mess with me." Seeing I didn't respond, Peter continued with his harsh words, "Linda, you will regret this." Luke glanced back at him with pity. "You mistook fake for real. You'll be the one regretting it." I moved in with Luke into his big house. Not long after, he had to fly to France for a concert. Every day, I practiced the piano without fail, since the International Chopin Piano Competition held every 3 years was approaching. I should have participated in the last one, but I missed it because I was saving Peter. This time, I had to win. I made it to the top 4 in the U.S. region. To my surprise, one of the judges was none other than my former piano teacher Jennifer. I joyfully went up to greet Jennifer, but she seemed a bit uneasy. I thought it was just because we hadn't seen each other in a while. But then Lucy appeared from behind me, took Jennifer's arm, and sweetly called her godmother. My heart sank. Even in my dreams, it was the same. Lucy got everyone's favor. Even Jennifer, who personally groomed me, eventually turned to her. My title as the genius piano girl was given to Lucy by the media after her arrival. My mediocre performance in the finals became a foil, a wasted talent, blending into the crowd. Jennifer patted her arm lovingly and then turned to me, saying, "Linda, I didn't expect you to make it to the finals, too." Lucy lifted her chin proudly. "Linda, you're likely to be disappointed this time, because I'm determined to win first place." Jennifer gently tapped her forehead and said, "How can you talk to your senior like that? Be more respectful." But she didn't deny what Lucy said. There was a time when I was her favorite student. Lucy wasn't exaggerating. I saw the flood of news articles. All the praise was for her, calling her the hot favorite to win the championship. I didn't know what fast-track secrets she had to make 3 years of learning surpass those who had been practicing for 10. But I believe there are no shortcuts in life. Even if techniques can be mastered quickly, understanding music takes time. I swallowed my nostalgia and politely said goodbye to Jennifer. The final started, and I drew the last slot. Lucy was right before me. Before going on stage, Lucy winked at someone in the audience. Following her gaze, I saw Peter. He was sitting in the VIP seats next to the judges. I heard he was the biggest sponsor. Lucy played a high-difficulty, dazzling piece, a tune that supposedly fewer than 10 people in the world could play flawlessly. When she finished, the applause was thunderous, and the judges nodded in agreement. Entertainment journalists were convinced Lucy would win and began drafting their headlines. I calmly walked to the stage and sat at the piano, ignoring the restless people leaving for the restroom and the tired judges. I placed my fingers on the keys and glanced at Peter. It reminded me of the day I saved him. A crystal chandelier fell without warning, and I tackled him to the ground. The chandelier's frame pierced my wrist, and the excruciating pain shattered my dreams. But at that moment, I was just glad Peter was unharmed. Memories with Peter flashed before my eyes like a slideshow. The first touch of his warm hand. The first kiss with trembling lips. The first time we stood before others to accept their blessings, filled with hope. The first heartbreak when I saw him interact intimately with Lucy. Memories played out, concluding with him leaving, holding Lucy. I struck the first key. Symphony No. 5 in C minor. Otherwise known as the Symphony of Fate. The stirring notes flowed from my fingertips. I finally understood the essence of the piece. A lost competition, a parted lover, an almost ruined dream. If this was my destiny, I would accept it bravely. If this nightmare was my fate, I would face it with courage but never yield. The powerful final notes echoed throughout the hall. There was a moment of silence. Then one judge stood up and clapped. One after another, people stood up and applauded. Finally, the entire hall was on its feet with deafening applause. I took a deep breath, covered in sweat and a single tear, and took my bow. I returned to my seat, calming my emotions, waiting quietly for the results. The head judge was Jennifer. She rose and began with some formal remarks, finally saying, "We debated long and hard about the winner. While Linda's Symphony of Fate has reached its pinnacle, the difficulty is slightly lower than that of contestant number 3. Therefore, we award first place to Lucy. Let's congratulate Lucy on her victory and Linda on winning second place." The audience was in uproar. I looked up at the judges' panel, seeing several judges visibly upset. They decided I lost. The audience started shouting about a fix, but security quickly removed them. Lucy walked past me with her trophy, bending down to whisper, "I told you, you'd be disappointed. Peter is mine, and so is the spot for the Chopin competition. Because I'm the protagonist of this world." I looked up sharply. It was the exact same line from my dream. I sat in a daze as the crowd dispersed. A pair of meticulously crafted leather shoes appeared in my view. Looking up, I saw Peter. He had stayed to the end. Linda, he leaned down, his hands pressing down on my chair, trapping me. I told you, you'd regret it. If you say you regret it now and come back to me, I can give you the spot in the Polish competition. I slapped Peter hard. Rubbing my tingling wrist, I said coldly, Peter, I do regret it. My biggest regret is saving you 3 years ago. Not getting the Chopin qualification was disappointing. But I knew it wasn't my fault. Some inexorable force seemed to erase all my efforts, making me Lucy's foil. But the peak years for a pianist are few and far between. I couldn't wait another 3 years. When domestic news media were overwhelming us with Lucy's hype, Luke returned. Linda, I watched your final performance video. Luke set down his luggage and got straight to the point. I sat at the piano, looking up at him, waiting quietly for what he was about to say. Do you want to fight fate with me? Sunlight streamed in from behind, casting Luke in a radiant glow as he walked toward me. Yes. I smiled. Luke said he was going to take me to Poland. I guess he must have gotten an invitation to watch the competition. After all, for a world-famous violinist like him, getting an invitation probably isn't too hard. It's okay if he can't participate. At least he can soak up the atmosphere. Luke and I quickly flew to Poland and checked into his apartment in Warsaw, the capital. As I looked around the apartment, I teased him, no wonder, you even have a property here. Luke grunted in discontent, I listed all my assets for you right after we got married. Looks like you didn't even glance at it. Then I remembered the file that he had the lawyer give to me. Miss Lynn, all of Mr. Luke's asset documents are here. I thought Luke married me just to help me out of a messy situation. I figured once things calmed down, we'd go our separate ways, so I never thought about looking into his assets. When I didn't say anything, Luke dramatically opened the curtains. Linda, look outside. What do you see? I looked up and saw the Philharmonic Hall surrounded by the Vistula River, glowing in the night. Is that the final venue for the Chopin competition? I exclaimed in delight. Luke's eyes sparkled, like a puppy waiting for praise. But before I could compliment him, Luke calmly pulled out a contestant pass. How did you get that? I was beyond surprised. Forgot to tell you, I'm a special guest at the Chopin competition. I have a special recommendation spot to nominate someone directly to the finals. So, Linda, do you want to take on this challenge? I couldn't believe it, covering my mouth and feeling tears well up. Luke. Luke smiled warmly at me, hurry and nod, say you want to. I nodded heavily, I want to. Just as my hand touched the contestant pass, Luke pulled it back. But I have one condition. My emotions plummeted like a roller coaster. I looked at Luke eagerly and confused. Luke mischievously smiled, call me husband, and the pass is yours. My face turned red instantly. Not willing to back down, I replied, you're so stingy. Shouldn't it be, call me husband, and I'll give you my life? Luke pulled me into his arms, his forehead resting against mine as he laughed, all right, my life is yours. I lifted my head and kissed him. He responded passionately, gasping as he added, right now. Once I confirmed my qualification to compete, I began intense training. During our days in Warsaw, many people came to visit Luke daily. For the first time, I truly understood that Luke was a world-renowned violinist. Music was a common language. While practicing day and night, Luke gave me many valuable insights. My piano skills improved rapidly. Soon, it was the day of the competition. Luke took my hand and led me into the Philharmonic Hall, where we inevitably ran into Peter and Lucy. Lucy looked surprised to see me, then quickly broke into a smile. Sister Linda, are you here to watch me compete? I'll do my best. Peter stared at my hand entwined with Luke's, his eyes filled with anger. Unfazed, I walked past them with Luke, treating them as air. Unfortunately, their seats were near ours, making it impossible to avoid them completely. When my draw number was announced, Lucy couldn't sit still any longer. Impossible, how could this happen? She muttered to herself. Then she turned and asked, what dirty tricks did you use to get into the competition? I glanced at her. When it comes to dirty tricks, I can't compare to you. Lucy was stunned for a moment, then spoke hatefully. Even if you're in the competition, the prize is still mine. Lucy went on stage soon after, coincidentally choosing the same piece as me. Her performance was met with thunderous applause, and she shot me a malicious smile. At that moment, the hall suddenly lost power. In the next second, some unknown powder fell into my eyes. A sharp pain hit me, and tears flowed from my eyes as a reflex. The lights in the hall came back on, but I couldn't open my eyes. Luke acted quickly, taking me backstage and arranging for a private doctor. The lady has lime in her eyes. She needs to flush them with boric acid solution. She won't be able to open her eyes for about 3 hours, the private doctor informed Luke while helping me rinse my eyes. Just then, I heard Peter's anxious voice. Linda, do you need me to call another doctor for you? Before I could respond, Lucy spoke first. Peter, let's go. Mister. Luke will take good care of his wife. Such a pity, though. How will she read the score if she can't see? I was looking forward to competing with Sister Linda so she wouldn't question my championship. I knew this wasn't an accident. It was that invisible hand once again pulling me down. It wants Lucy, the protagonist, to bask in all the glory. I'm just a minor character destined to have a dull fate. A cold, mechanical voice murmured in my ear. Give up, don't struggle. No matter how hard you try, the result is the same. You're a minor character, and your fate has long been sealed. That dream already showed you the final result. That's your destiny. Accept it. Suddenly, the abrupt sound of a violin shattered the insidious whispers. By listening, I recognized that it was Luke playing the violin. The powerful notes screamed and roared. It was Beethoven's Symphony No. 5, Fate. Luke was using his music to remind me not to accept my fate. My mind suddenly cleared. From the moment Peter broke off the engagement and I married Luke, I had already changed my fate. I smiled in the darkness and reached out toward Luke. Mr. Luke, please help me to the stage. I need to defy my fate. Your wish is my command, Mrs. Luke. Luke walked over and took my hand. I'll always be with you. What's there to fear about not being able to see? This is a piece I've practiced countless times. The music is already imprinted in my mind. I touched the piano keys and began playing fluidly. As I played with all my heart, it felt like my soul entered a realm where countless things floated around like bullet comments. Look. The supporting character is about to awaken. I think she's way better than the protagonist. She's amazing. Finally breaking free from the chains of fate. We demand the system make her the main character. Can we help her change fate by voting for her? But the system is bound to the main character. It won't allow that. Look at how her votes are skyrocketing. The system won't have a choice, right? When the final note ended, something shattered beside my ear. I laughed with relief. I knew I had won. The entire media of Country A was buzzing because I was the second person from Country A to win the championship in nearly a 100-year history of the competition. With Luke's help, I evaded the media and fans at the airport and slipped out through the VIP channel. As soon as I got home, Mom hugged me tight. How are your eyes? Any lasting effects? And your hands, are they fully recovered? Does it hurt after such intense training? My nose tingled. Everyone else was concerned about my winning, but Mom cared about my health. Thinking about the tragic end for her and Dad in my dreams, I made a secret vow. This time, I would change everyone's fate. After hosting wave after wave of guests at home, I finally had a moment to rest by nighttime. Luke knocked on the door and brought me a cup of calming milk. As he was about to leave, I called out to him. Luke. He turned back with a playful smile. Finally come around and willing to share a bed with me? Luke, did you know the truth about this world from the start? I asked seriously. Luke's smile faded. He fell silent for a moment and then said, Linda, I'm sorry. I can't say anything. Just give me a little more time. I nodded. All right, I'll wait. I guessed he must be under some kind of restriction and couldn't reveal the truth. Soon, Luke had to leave the country again. Left alone at home, I called Mary over for company. The moment Mary saw me, she started spilling gossip like beans out of a bamboo tube. Linda, good thing you didn't marry Peter, that jerk. And you probably don't know, but the Howard family's in trouble. Peter's uncle returned and is fighting with his father over power. Peter's acting weird, wanting to marry Lucy right now. Even crazier, Lucy seems to have some unclear relationship with Peter's uncle. Someone even took some intimate photos of them and sent them to Peter. The Howard family is a mess, and everyone's waiting to see their joke. Lucky for you, you didn't fall into that pit. Compared to them, our family's way better, right? Wait, I interrupted her, looking her up and down skeptically. Your family? Are you and Luke from the same family? Of course. Didn't I mention before that I wanted to introduce you to my cousin Luke? You cut me off last time. Who knew you'd end up marrying him? Mary replied grumpily. I even remember you playing well with him as kids, saying you'd marry him someday. My smile suddenly froze. Really? Yeah. Luke took up the violin back then just for you. Mary's voice started to fade away. Suddenly, I realized something terrifying. My clear memories all started from meeting Peter. All earlier memories were a blur. My head ached terribly, and the world began to break apart. Linda, what's wrong? Linda. I passed out. I fell into a haze of memories. Then, the memories gradually became clear. Luke, you're so musically gifted. It's such a waste if you don't learn an instrument. Fine, then I'll learn the hardest one, the violin. Yay! I'll be a pianist, you'll be a violinist, and we'll be invincible together. Silly, that's called harmonious like a zither and lute. Huh, trying to take advantage of me again? Don't think I don't know, harmonious like a zither and lute describes the relationship between a husband and wife. Well, you're gonna marry me anyway, so using that phrase a bit early isn't wrong. Humph. Say it when you become a world-famous violinist. It's a deal. When I become a world-famous violinist, I'll propose. I woke up with a start, finally understanding my obsession with the competition. It was because I once promised someone to meet at the pinnacle, harmonious like a zither and lute. That person wasn't Peter, it was Luke. How could I have forgotten Luke? I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to see Luke right away. As I was about to get up, Mary held me down. Calm down. And look where you are. Only then did I realize I was in a hospital. You nearly scared me to death. You've been unconscious for 5 hours, you know? I've already called my cousin. He's on his way back now. Since we have some time, want to hear the latest gossip about the Howard family? It's fresh off the press. Without waiting for my answer, she started speaking on her own. I just heard Peter and Lucy had their engagement party today. But during the party, Peter's uncle brought out a medical report saying Lucy was pregnant with his kid. Peter's father passed out and was just brought to the hospital next to your room. Serves him right, karma's catching up. Back when they framed my uncle and drove our family to J City, they should have known they'd get their comeuppance. Look at my uncle, thriving in J City, expanding his business abroad. His sons are doing well too, nothing like the Howard family's chaos. I shook my head. Good or bad, I didn't care about the Howard family anymore. I just wanted to see Luke. Mary's phone rang. Her face changed suddenly, and she shot to her feet. Plane crash. I sat up, stunned, looking at Mary anxiously. Mary swallowed and said in a trembling voice, Linda, don't worry. Let's head to the airport. When I was discharged from the hospital, Lucy stopped me. She couldn't even keep up the pretense of being nice anymore. She asked me, almost hysterically, how did you do it? You have a system too, don't you? I'm supposed to be the heroine of this world. I've read all the plots. Why is everything falling apart now? Why are the readers picking you? Why is everyone siding with you? I don't know what you're talking about. Move. I snapped, not wanting to waste another second on her and just wanting to get to the airport. You can't leave. Explain yourself. Lucy blocked me like a crazy person. I shoved her away, disgusted. I don't know what reader system you're talking about, but is it so strange that I beat you? Think about it honestly. Besides your main character Halo, what is there to like about you? I might be a side character in your story, but I've never strayed from my principles, never given up on my dreams, and never stopped fighting against my fate. I am fully and completely me. Lucy suddenly lost all strength and collapsed to the ground. I quickly waved for a cab and rushed to the airport. A large group of families had already gathered at the airport. Everyone was on the verge of breaking down. We were all awaiting the final judgment. There is currently no confirmation of a crash, said the airline's representative. The plane is just missing. We need to hope for a miracle. No, it's not about hoping for a miracle. This is the world's last struggle. It wants to punish me for deviating from the original path by erasing Luke. Everything is because Luke wanted to save me. From the wedding day, or maybe even earlier, from when he kept showing up near the rehabilitation hospital, he has always been trying to help and warn me. Why should he be erased from the world for saving me from a miserable fate? Why does the main character get everything so easily while the side characters get nothing no matter how hard they try? Why can the main character do evil in the name of love, while the side characters can't fight their fate? I refuse to accept it. Must side characters always live miserable lives to highlight the main character's love story? How do you know we can't be the main characters in another story? Suddenly, thunder rumbled in the sky. I heard the system voice again. Warning, original setting collapsed. System is preparing to detach. 3, 2, 1. After a loud noise, the control tower suddenly delivered good news. We've made contact with MU-3697. MU-3697 is returning. MU-3697 is returning. Cheers erupted at the airport. 2 hours later, I cut through the crowd and hugged Luke tightly. The moment I touched him, I could finally let go and cry my heart out. Luke gently patted my back and whispered, "Thank you for saving me, my heroine." Side story, from Luke's perspective. My childhood friend Linda has been acting really strange lately. She used to stick to me to practice piano every day, but out of nowhere, she started to ignore me. Now she's hanging out with some transfer student named Peter. I secretly checked him out. He's not taller, not better looking, and definitely not as rich as I am. He's even got a bad temper. What does Linda see in this guy? I'm kind of irritated, so I start wearing different outfits every day just to show off in front of her class. My cousin Mary said I looked like a peacock showing off its feathers. But even that couldn't get her attention back. I was upset. She's the girl I'd set my heart on since we were kids. I sulked for a while, then decided to win her back. I asked Mary to set up a dinner with her. Linda showed up but seemed distracted. I thought the dinner was a total bust until she asked me a weird question. She said, "That little bear on your bag is so cute, where did you get it?" I stared at her in surprise. That bear was a birthday gift she made for me last year. I started to watch her closely and noticed she was forgetting all our memories. She forgot our Friday piano practice sessions. She forgot our annual summer trips. Once, she even forgot where my house was, even though she had been there many times. Her eyes looked more unfamiliar every time she saw me. Her smile more distant. Just when I wanted to dig deeper, my dad announced that we were moving to J City, away from N City. I found out our family lost several projects to the Howard family. My dad said it was a feng shui problem and we had to move right away. I went to say goodbye to Linda. I told her I'd call, but she just smiled politely and wished me well. For a long time, I wavered between thinking Linda had either fallen for someone else or gone nuts. On sleepless nights, I'd lie in bed wondering what had happened. I couldn't believe she would just throw me away like that. Something must have happened. Then I heard the news that she had hurt her hand trying to save Peter. My mom said, "Poor girl, she'll never play piano again." I heard a roaring sound in my head. No one knew better than me how much playing piano meant to her. I couldn't bear to imagine how much pain she was in. That night, I had a strange dream. I dreamt that we lived inside a book. And my Linda was just a sad supporting character. I watched her tragic life. I saw her struggle against her fate only to end up miserable. I woke up from the dream, desperate to save her. I called her immediately, wanting to tell her the truth. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't say the words. I realized the world had a rule against telling her the truth. To save my girl, I had to do it slowly. When I heard she went abroad for rehabilitation, I started showing up at her rehab place, pretending it was coincidental. I kept a close eye on her, ready to help whenever I could. Soon, I got my chance. Peter called off their engagement. I couldn't believe my dream was coming true so easily. Seeing her calm face, I thought it might be better if she never remembered the past. As long as I stayed by her side, I could make her love me again. But something kept stopping me from getting close to her. If I stayed with her for more than a month, something would come up to separate us. That force was also trying to pull my girl back to her original path. How could I allow that? As I was thinking about how to quietly change her fate, she had a nightmare. Listening to her mumbling in her sleep, I guessed she already knew the truth. She wanted to fight destiny, and of course, I had to help her. I just didn't expect the revenge to come so quickly. I was sitting on the plane when I heard the captain say the control stick was malfunctioning, and we lost contact with the control tower. That's when I knew it was that force punishing me for altering her fate without permission, messing up the world's original storyline. But I didn't regret it. I closed my eyes, waiting for death to come, but unexpectedly, I heard Linda's inner voice. I'm not giving up. Who says we can't be the main characters in another story? As soon as she said that, a cold mechanical voice chimed in. Warning, original settings have collapsed. System preparing to exit in 3, 2, 1. The clouds parted, and we restored communication. I laughed. I guess my Linda, with her last question, broke free from being a supporting character. Why do we have to be someone else's sidekick? Maybe we're the main characters in another story? My flight landed safely. And I saw that girl running towards me against the crowd. It's wonderful. My female lead created a miracle and saved everyone. I smiled and opened my arms to her. Linda, our story is just beginning.